Hello and welcome to Edsinsight. I'm your host, Eddie Vogel. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on this episode as we dig deep into looking at events going on in our world today and giving a biblical, encouraging, positive perspective on things going on and understanding that we can see the good in things even when things seem dark and when things seem as though they won't get better. Before we dig into today's episode, I just want to first take a few moments and send our condolences out to those families who lost loved ones due to those horrific shootings that happened this past weekend in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. We pray for those families and we seek that God would bring his peace in those families and be able to heal those families in the midst of what they're going through, and that justice would be done to the shooters that had caused these horrific shootings. And America is no place for that type of stuff. No matter what side of the political aisle you're on, you should not be okay with this type of shooting going on. And the sad thing about it is, in the midst of all this, our politicians in Washington have made this a big political thing to help with their 2020 presidential campaigns, where we see a lot of the people on the left calling out guns and saying that the very craziest thing is saying that President Trump is the person who is at fault for these shootings, and that we should ban all guns in the United States, and that we should do this and do that. And this is the party, folks, that told us that love trumps hate. But look at their hate that's coming at blaming everybody but the shooter of that happened with the shooting. It wasn't President Trump's fault. It wasn't any other American's fault that these shooters got up and wanted to shoot innocent people. We need to stop blaming people that have nothing to do with it. We didn't sit here during the Obama administration and say that Obama was was at fault for every shooting under his watch, which was 30 plus shootings under his watch. But not once did you see the Republicans or real Americans say, oh, we're going to blame Obama for those shootings. But we see it now that just because they're so caught up on, the left is so caught on mad because they lost the election back in 2016, we're still hearing about it. And what they do is, instead of working with President Trump, instead of working with the Republicans, they just complain and gripe about every single thing. And I'm not saying there's Republicans that every Republican is perfect and that every Republican, you see it on the Republican side, people are trying to say, everybody in Washington is pointing fingers at each other, blaming each other for their problems, instead of doing what we sent them to Washington to do, was to govern and help us make our country better and make our country greater. But sadly, I think we're going to see this over and over, and I strongly believe that, yes, there's something we need to do to stop these shootings. Yes, there's something we need to do to make sure that bad people don't get guns, but the answer is not banning all guns and taking away everybody's guns. That's not going to solve anything, because then you're going to have a bunch of citizens out in the middle and out unarmed and unable to defend themselves, when these crazy madmen who don't follow these laws still hang on to their guns and come out to shoot people because they know they won't have anything to defend themselves. Because criminals do not follow laws. Let me say that again. Criminals do not follow laws. You can have every law in the book, but the criminals are going to find ways around it. So the answer is, I believe, making more good people in America have guns available and arming themselves when they're out in public to be ready to step up and to save lives and to make sure there's no loss of life. Because when you have good people with guns out in our communities, out in our streets, the criminals are not going to go to those, are going to be less likely to go out and just shoot random people, because they're going to know that citizens on the street have guns and that they'll be faced with a gun themselves. So the thing is yes, we got to make sure that those who have mental illnesses and those that have those type of situations don't get guns. But the answer is not to take away guns from every other American just because of a handful of folks. Because the thing is, folks, it's not the gun that killed people. It's the person who pulled the trigger that killed people. The gun does not fire unless you pull the trigger. And that's what people don't need to understand, is that is the reason why. And sadly, we've gotten so caught up in this that it's become a political debate and stuff. And we've lost sight of standing and grieving with those who lost loved ones and standing in unity with one another instead of division, and focusing on making our communities better and making our relationships with people better. And that's how truly we will solve the problem with these shootings going on, to prevent mass shootings and to prevent these violence acts against innocent people. And, I just pray that one day we will be able to do this, and, that we would be able to stand together and work together and do what we can to prevent these disasters and these mass shootings from happening. I don't know if a lot of you noticed that football season has started here, and we're getting ready, for football season, and I'm so excited for football season, where I bet you're excited for football season as well, and that you are getting ready to cheer on your favorite team, whether it be your local high school team that your kids go to, the high school your kids go to, or maybe it's the college ball level where you're cheering for your favorite college to hopefully make it to the championship, but we'll see what happens down the road. Or it's the NFL. Maybe you're one of those guys that you're ready for the NFL, or gals, you're ready for the NFL to get going and get speeding up and ready to cheer on your team to see who gets to the Super Bowl. And, I'm just excited for football season. I think it's one of my favorite. Well, and it's not, I think, I know, and I'm saying that football is my favorite sport, and football season is my favorite time of year. It's like Christmas for me. Just, seeing the teams get out there on the field, it's like opening that big present on Christmas Day, the excitement and the enthusiasm that brings me. And, I don't know who your team may be, but for me, it's the Detroit Lions. And yes, I get grief about that because Lions are not that good. But hey, somebody has to cheer for the Lions, right? I mean, you got to cheer for the Lions, if somebody does. And so that's my team, and we'll see what we got this year, and I think with all the other teams, it's the same way that you are, looking at your team, hoping that you will make it to the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens, and also, I was looking at that baseball season. I can't believe there's a little less than 2 months left of the regular season, and teams are fighting and clawing in some divisions to get to that playoff spot, and the wild card race is going really well, and I'm hoping that some good teams will get in there, and we will see what happens. But the thing about it is, if your team does or doesn't get to the playoffs, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep supporting your team in the bad times, in the good times, and you just cheer them on no matter what, and understand that it's not about winning all the time. And yes, it's great to get to that World Series, but that's not, it doesn't have to be about that, and it can just be about, going out there and having fun and working as a team and cheering for your team, and just being able to just enjoy the game of football and game of baseball and the game of basketball and other sports that we have been blessed with, and just love those, and get away from the world. And I see that as a way that we, get away from the world for a minute, and we go and to sports events and have a good time and feel like kids again because we're cheering on our favorite teams, and I also like how this time of year, yes, we have football, and yes, it's getting a little bit cooler, but kids are going back to school, and kids are going to meet new friends this semester and meet new people, and just get families are going to get back in the swing of things. And I just want to encourage you as you go to begin your time with this time of year. This time of year, to be able to be able to stay together as a family and set time aside, even in our busy schedules, as we get ready to get back in the swing of things, to have those family dinners and have those family game nights and have that time during the week where you're sitting down as a family enjoying the time together. Because when you have young kids, that doesn't last very long. Time will fly by fast. Next thing you know, you're coming up and your kids are going out the door off to college, and you're not going to have them there. So I would encourage you to have that family time, have that time of just loving one another and being around each other. And that's something that we're missing in our society today. Is we got all this technology and all this social media and all these distractions that seem to get stuck in the middle of a family, and it divides a family because we get so caught up in all these devices and all these things that we lose that time of being a family. And I want to encourage you, don't lose that, because that's what will keep America going and keep America great, is when we raise up our kids, when we raise up our family to be able to look at things together and work together and look at things in a positive perspective, that we would be able to, our kids would be able to, and generations to come, would still be able to make America what it is today, the great country that it is, and striving to do better and to be an example and be a light to people all around them. So that's just a little bit of insight. I want to tell you, maybe right now you're sitting there and you're at that point in your life where you look around you and you see everything is just chaotic. Everything is a mess. It seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I want to tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And you may not see the light right now, but all you have to do is look up, look out, down the tunnel, and you'll see the light. And just keep walking and keep pressing on and keep fighting the good fight, because one day you're going to get to that light, and you're going to look back on all the struggles and all the hardships and everything that you went through and see that I made it. I went through it. That you got through what you went through, and you're sitting on top in the light, and that you are able to stand there and not only be thankful for where you've been and where you are, but be able to help people get them to the light as well, and get them to the end of the tunnel. And that's how we're going to be able to encourage people, is when we come together, be an encouragement, and help each other reach that end of the tunnel of the light that is there for every one of us, and not be distracted by the things of this world and the things that try to hold us down, but be able to look on the final prize and know that we will make it. And I hear a lot of people say, well, why would God let this happen? Or why would God let that happen? Why does God let bad things happen? The thing is God does not it's not God that's allowing these things to happen in our world. It's because of sin that we have all the problems we have in this world today. And I want you to know that this is not a new thing. Sin has been in the world since the beginning of time. Back in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve denied God and disobeyed God's plan that God had designed, and went off and made their own plan and made their own mistakes. And when Eve ate that apple and Adam ate that apple, that's when sin entered the world. That's when God's plan was ruined. God's plan of perfect was ruined. And we see that all from then, that there has been struggle after struggle after struggle. But we see that there was someone who was sent to help deliver us from the sin of this world and help deliver us from the evil. And that is Jesus Christ, who died on a cross for our sins and made it so that we don't have to live in sin. And yes, we may be surrounded by sin in our world and evil in our world, but know that Jesus himself clearly said, do not fear, for I am with you, and do not fear. And we see that multiple times of do not fear in God, because Jesus said, I have overcome the world. And so when Jesus overcomes the world, we don't have to fear. We don't have to fear because God is with us, and God will be with us till the end, and he will help to get us through what we're going through. So just look to him, be encouraged by that, and know that you can get it. You can get there. I can get there. We all can get there together. So I'm so glad that you've tuned in for this episode today. And I hope that you will be able to take a few things that we've learned today, talking about how do we look at working together and being able to spend that time as a family working together and growing together as a family, and being able to understand that Jesus is the only way that we can overcome the sins of this world, and by him we are saved, and by him we are set free. And that's truly what it's all about, folks. So God bless you, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Edsinsight. I'm your host, Eddie Vogel, and God bless.